In 1992, a small group of men sat in a hotel room in London and made a decision. They decided to break away from everything football had ever known. No one could have predicted what would happen next. Within a few years, this decision would turn football into the richest sport on earth and change the lives of millions of fans forever. This is the story of how the Premier League was born. Chapter 1: A League in Crisis. To understand why the Premier League was created, we first need to understand how broken English football was before it. In the 1980s, England's top league was called the First Division. It was one of the oldest football competitions in the world. But by the 1980s, it was in trouble. Stadiums were old and poorly maintained. Fan violence, known as hooliganism, had damaged football's reputation across Europe. English clubs were even banned from European competitions for 5 years after a tragedy in 1985, when 39 fans died during a riot at a match in Brussels. Then came 2 more disasters at home. In 1985, a fire broke out at Bradford City Stadium. It spread in minutes. 56 people died. In 1989, at Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield, overcrowding caused a crush during an FA Cup semi-final. 97 Liverpool supporters lost their lives. It remains one of the darkest days in British sporting history. These tragedies forced the government to act. A report called the Taylor Report demanded major changes. Stadiums had to become all-seater, safer, and more modern. But modernizing stadiums cost enormous amounts of money. And English football, in its old structure, simply didn't have it. Chapter 2: The Money Question. At the time, television money in English football was shared across all 92 clubs in the country, from the giants to the smallest teams in the lower divisions. The biggest clubs began to ask an uncomfortable question: why should we share our television revenue with clubs that nobody wants to watch? Executives from clubs like Manchester United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Tottenham started meeting secretly. Their idea was radical: break away from the Football League entirely, form a new top division, and negotiate broadcasting rights independently, keeping the vast majority of the money for themselves. The Football Association, English football's governing body, supported the idea. They saw it as a way to weaken the Football League's power and strengthen the top club's influence over the national team. In 1992, after months of negotiation, the breakaway became official. A brand new competition was formed, the FA Premier League. Chapter 3: The Sky Sports Gamble. Around the same time, a satellite television company was fighting for survival. Sky Sports was still a new broadcaster, and it needed something powerful to convince British households to buy satellite dishes. Football was the answer. Sky made an aggressive bid for the rights to broadcast the new Premier League, offering far more money than traditional broadcaster the BBC. Reportedly, Sky paid around £304 million for a 5-year deal, a figure that shocked the football world at the time. It was an enormous gamble, but Sky didn't just want to show football matches. They wanted to reinvent how football was presented. They introduced dramatic entrance music, multiple camera angles, pre-match analysis, player profiles, a countdown clock before kickoff. Football stopped feeling like a simple weekend pastime and started feeling like a television spectacle. Fans, at first skeptical, quickly fell in love with it. Chapter 4: The Early Years and a New Dynasty. The Premier League's first season kicked off in August 1992. At the end of that first season, Manchester United lifted the trophy, their first league title in 26 years. Their manager, a fiery Scotsman named Alex Ferguson, had been under enormous pressure before that season. This victory would mark the beginning of one of the most dominant dynasties in football history. Over the next 2 decades, Ferguson's Manchester United would win the Premier League title an incredible 13 times. But United weren't alone in shaping the league's early identity. In the mid-1990s, Arsenal appointed a little-known French manager named Arsène Wenger. Many English pundits mocked the appointment, unsure what a foreign manager could bring to English football. Wenger proved them wrong. He introduced new ideas about nutrition, fitness, and passing-based football. In the 2003-04 season, his Arsenal side went the entire 38-game season without losing a single match, a feat still celebrated today as the Invincibles. Chapter 5: The Foreign Revolution. As Premier League clubs grew richer, they began looking beyond England's borders for talent. Foreign players started arriving in growing numbers, first a trickle, then a flood. Players like Dennis Bergkamp, John Franco Zola, and Patrick Vieira brought new styles, new techniques, and new levels of quality that raised the standard of the entire league. By the early 2000s, it was no longer unusual for a Premier League team to start a match without a single English player. This globalization made the league faster, more technical, and more entertaining, but it also created tension. Critics argued the flood of foreign talent was making it harder for young English players to break into top teams, a debate that continues in English football to this day. Chapter 6: Billionaires Arrive. The next major transformation came in 2003. A Russian billionaire named Roman Abramovich purchased Chelsea Football Club. Almost overnight, Chelsea began spending extraordinary sums of money on world-class players. Other clubs and other billionaires took notice. Football clubs were no longer just sports institutions. They were becoming global business assets, capable of generating enormous returns through sponsorships, merchandise, and media rights. In 2008, an investment group from Abu Dhabi purchased Manchester City, a club that had spent years in the shadow of its more successful neighbor, Manchester United. Within a decade, City transformed from a mid-table club into one of the most dominant forces in world football. This new era of ownership brought incredible resources into the league, but also raised difficult questions about financial fairness. In response, European football's governing body introduced financial fair play rules, designed to stop clubs from simply buying success through unlimited spending. Chapter 7: The Big Six and Modern Rivalries. By the 2010s, a clear hierarchy had formed at the top of English football. Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham became known as the Big Six. These clubs dominated both the competition on the pitch and the finances off it, regularly finishing at the top of the table and qualifying for lucrative European competitions. This period also produced some of football's most intense modern rivalries. Manchester United versus Manchester City transformed from a local derby into a battle for national supremacy. Liverpool's revival under manager Jurgen Klopp, culminating in their first league title in 30 years in 2020, reignited one of English football's oldest rivalries with Manchester United. Meanwhile, smaller clubs occasionally shocked the football world. In the 2015-16 season, Leicester City, a club that had nearly been relegated to a lower division the year before, won the Premier League title against odds of 5,000 to 1. It remains one of the greatest underdog stories in the history of sport. Chapter 8: Technology Changes the Game. As the Premier League grew richer, it also began embracing new technology to improve fairness and accuracy. Goal line technology was introduced in 2013, using cameras to determine instantly whether a ball had fully crossed the goal line. In 2019, the league introduced the Video Assistant Referee, known as VAR, allowing officials to review major decisions using video replays. While designed to reduce refereeing errors, VAR quickly became one of the most debated topics among fans, players, and pundits, sparking arguments about the speed and spirit of the game. Chapter 9: A Global Empire. Today, the Premier League is no longer just an English competition. It is a global entertainment product. Matches are broadcast in more than 180 countries, watched by an estimated audience of billions across a single season. A fan in Lagos, a fan in Jakarta, and a fan in Sao Paulo can watch the exact same match live, at the exact same moment. Broadcasting rights alone now generate billions of dollars every season, split between domestic and international deals. Clubs earn additional fortunes through global sponsorship deals, shirt sales, and preseason tours to Asia and North America, where the league's popularity continues to grow. Some of the finest players in the world, from Africa, South America, Asia, and across Europe, now see playing in the Premier League as the pinnacle of their careers, not simply because of trophies, but because of the unmatched global stage it offers. Closing. Not every football league in the world had this story. Some leagues stayed exactly the same for decades, rarely reaching beyond their own borders. But in 1992, a small group of English clubs made a gamble, one built on ambition, television money, and a bold belief that football could be bigger than anyone had imagined. Today, when people around the world say the word football, many of them picture Old Trafford, Anfield, or the Etihad Stadium, not necessarily because these are the oldest clubs in the world, but because the Premier League found a way to make the entire planet watch. And that single decision, made in a London hotel room more than 3 decades ago, changed football forever.